The evening sky over the crowded marketplace burned in shades of fading orange as the city prepared to slip into night. Vendors shouted their last calls, mothers tugged their children close, and the rush of footsteps blended into a familiar urban hum. Yet amid all that noise, there was one sound everyone tried to ignore: the soft, desperate cough of the frail old man sitting beside the garbage bins near the corner tea stall. His clothes were ragged, his beard tangled into grey knots, and his trembling fingers clutched a rusted tin cup with only 3 coins rattling inside. People passed him every day. Some looked at him with pity for a second before turning away, others didn't look at him at all. To most, he was part of the pavement, an invisible reminder of a truth everyone avoided. A young man named Hamza walked swiftly through the crowd, his mind buried under the weight of another failed job interview. His shoulders drooped, and his cheap black backpack felt heavier than usual. He had promised his mother that things would get better, but every rejection drained a little more hope. As he neared the tea stall, he caught sight of the old man again. He had seen him before. Everyone had. But like the rest, Hamza usually kept walking. But tonight was different. Tonight, something within him made him slow down. The old man tried to stand, perhaps reaching for a crumpled water bottle lying near his feet, but his body betrayed him. His knees buckled and he collapsed sideways onto the cold pavement. People gasped, hesitated, and then continued walking, whispering among themselves that it wasn't their problem. Someone even muttered that the old man was probably just pretending. Hamza froze. He looked around. No one was helping. Not even the stall owner, who merely shrugged and kept filling cups. Something pulled inside Hamza's chest. An instinct, a memory of his own grandfather who had died alone in a hospital corridor because strangers didn't think it was their place to help. Hamza rushed forward, kneeling beside the old man. "Baba, can you hear me?" he whispered, gently lifting the man's head. The old man's eyelids fluttered, his breathing shallow. Without another thought, Hamza slipped his arm under the frail body and lifted him with surprising strength.
"He needs help,"
he shouted to the crowd, but people only watched, reluctant to get involved. The nearest ride service had a long queue, and ambulances didn't come quickly in that part of town, so Hamza hailed a passing motorcycle driver, begged him, argued with him, and eventually threw what little money he had in exchange for a quick ride to the clinic. The driver finally agreed. Hamza climbed on with the old man leaning limply against him, and they sped away through traffic. At the clinic, Hamza rushed inside, pleading with the receptionist who insisted on paperwork and fees first. Hamza slammed his ID card on the counter. "Put it on my name. Please just take him in," he insisted. The receptionist gave him a frustrated look before calling for a stretcher. Hours passed. Hamza sat on the dusty plastic chair, biting his nails, checking the hallway every time a nurse walked by. He didn't know the old man's name. He didn't know if he had a family. He didn't know why he cared so much. Maybe because he knew what it felt like to be overlooked. When the doctor finally came out, his tone was measured. "He's stable for now. Dehydration, severe weakness, lack of nourishment. He wouldn't have survived the night without help." Hamza exhaled deeply, relief washing over him like a warm tide. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, thanking God silently. The doctor wasn't finished. "He's asking for you." Hamza blinked in surprise, but followed the doctor to a dim recovery room. The old man lay on a narrow bed, and 4 tubes attached to his translucent hand. His eyes softened when they landed on Hamza. "You came back," the old man murmured in a fragile voice. Hamza stepped closer. "Of course, Baba." A faint smile touched the old man's lips, weak but full of gratitude. "What's your name, son?" "Hamza." The old man's fingers curled slightly, beckoning him forward. Hamza leaned in, and the man whispered words that sent a strange chill down his spine. "You have saved more than you know." Before Hamza could ask what he meant, the old man drifted into sleep. Hamza stood quietly beside him. For the first time that day, despite the chaos, the failures, and the exhaustion, he felt something rare: purpose. The next morning, sunlight poured through the clinic windows, warming the smell of disinfectant in the air. Hamza had slept sitting upright in the same hard chair, his head resting against the wall. He woke with a stiff neck, but he didn't leave. Every few minutes he glanced at the room where the old man rested, feeling strangely responsible for him. Around mid-morning, the doctor approached with a clipboard. "He's awake now," he said. "We still need more tests, but he's asking to see you again." Hamza stood and entered the room quietly. The old man's eyes were brighter today, though still tired. "You stayed," the man whispered. Hamza shrugged slightly. "I didn't want you to be alone." The man studied him closely as if searching his face for clues. "People don't usually stop for me," he said. "They don't see me anymore." Hamza sat on the edge of the chair. "I saw you." A silence stretched between them, soft but heavy with meaning. Then the old man said, "My name is Arif. Nice to meet you, Baba Arif." Hamza replied warmly. Arif's gaze softened. "Tell me, Hamza, why did you help someone who has nothing to offer?" Hamza hesitated. The question dug deep. "Because someone should have helped my grandfather when he needed it," he finally said. "But no one did. I couldn't walk away from you." Arif closed his eyes as if absorbing the words. Then he did something unexpected. His frail hand reached for Hamza's. "God sees what others don't," he whispered, "and he rewards kindness in ways we can't imagine." Hamza didn't know how to respond. He didn't save the man for a reward. He saved him because walking away felt wrong. For the rest of the day, Hamza stayed with Arif, feeding him spoonfuls of soup, adjusting his pillows, even helping him to the washroom when the nurses were busy. He listened to fragments of Arif's past, of a wife who had died years ago, a small shop he once owned, a lifetime of hard work erased by illness and misfortune. One tragedy after another had pushed him onto the street. By evening, the doctor returned, looking concerned. "His body is responding," he said, "but his recovery will take time. He can't stay here without someone responsible for him. Do you know him well?" Hamza swallowed hard. "Not well, but I'll take responsibility." The doctor frowned. "It's a lot to handle." "I said I'll do it," Hamza repeated, firmer this time. The doctor nodded reluctantly and began preparing discharge papers for the next morning. Later that night, as Hamza sat beside Arif again, the old man's voice cracked softly. "You're giving up so much time. Why?" Hamza looked at him gently. "Because I believe everyone deserves someone who cares." Arif's eyes filled with something unspoken. Guilt, gratitude, sorrow, hope. "If I told you that your kindness would change your life," he whispered, "would you believe me?" Hamza smiled weakly. "I don't expect anything to change." Arif closed his eyes and sighed deeply. "It will." At that moment, Hamza didn't know that these words were not just an old man's attempt to comfort him. They were a promise, one that would soon unravel a truth far larger than he could imagine. Night had settled again by the time Hamza walked Arif slowly out of the clinic, supporting him with an arm wrapped around his fragile shoulders. The city's lights flickered like tiny stars misplaced on earth. Hamza had called a friend with a rickshaw to help them get home, and the friend reluctantly agreed, shaking his head at Hamza's tendency to help strangers, but Hamza only smiled. When they reached Hamza's small apartment on the second floor of an old building, Arif looked around as though he had stepped into a palace. The worn sofa, the single wooden table, the cracked wallpaper. Everything seemed like luxury to someone who had been living on the streets. "You live here alone?" Arif asked. "With my mother," Hamza said. "She works at the school. She'll be home later." Hamza settled Arif onto the sofa, covered him with a blanket and brought him warm tea. The old man sipped slowly, his eyes watery. "I haven't been inside a home in years," he murmured. "Not like this." Hamza didn't know what to say, so he just smiled and sat beside him, scrolling through job listings on his cheap phone. Every opportunity seemed like a distant dream, but now he had an extra mouth to feed and medical bills ahead. Still, he felt strangely calm. A knock sounded on the door. It was Hamza's mother, tired from work but instantly alarmed when she saw the stranger. Hamza explained quickly, and though she was hesitant, she eventually softened, just like her son knew she would. She prepared a simple dinner of lentils and bread, and the three of them ate together. Arif ate slowly, tears slipping down his cheeks. "I forgot what it felt like," he whispered, "to sit at a table, with people." That night, Hamza prepared a bed for Arif in his room and slept on the floor beside him. The old man seemed restless, breathing unevenly at times, muttering words Hamza couldn't understand. At around 3 in the morning, Arif suddenly grabbed Hamza's hand tightly. "Listen," he whispered urgently, his voice trembling. "There is something you must know." Hamza sat up quickly. What is it? Arif's eyes darted around the room, as if checking for shadows. I was not always poor, he began. Years ago, I had money, property, a business, but people I trusted betrayed me. They left me with nothing. I wandered, and no one cared. Hamza's heart tightened with sympathy. Arif continued. There is something left, something they couldn't steal, something meant for someone worthy. His voice cracked again. And you, Hamza, you are the first person in years who treated me like a human being. Hamza shook his head gently. Baba, you don't need to say this. I'm helping you because it's right, not because... Listen, Arif insisted. Tomorrow, I will show you. Hamza tried to calm him. You need rest. We can talk in the morning. Arif nodded weakly but held on to Hamza's hand until he finally drifted into sleep. Hamza stayed awake long after, wondering what the old man truly meant. Was it delirium? A dream? Or was there something more? The next morning, Arif woke early and asked for a pen and paper. His hands trembled as he wrote something carefully, signing it at the bottom. Then he folded the paper and handed it to Hamza. When the time comes, he said softly, open this. Hamza frowned. Baba, what is this? A key to your future. Before Hamza could ask more, Arif asked for fresh clothes and said he wanted to go somewhere. Alone with Hamza, they left the apartment later that afternoon, and the old man guided Hamza through streets he seemed oddly familiar with. Finally, they stopped in front of an old, abandoned building. Arif looked up at it with tired but hopeful eyes. This, he whispered, is where everything will change. The abandoned building stood tall, wrapped in dust and silence. Its faded signboard, barely hanging on one screw, read, Arif and Sons Textile Warehouse. Hamza's breath caught. He turned slowly to the old man beside him. You own this? He asked. Arif nodded weakly. My life's work, my pride, until the people I trusted forged documents and pushed me out while I was sick. He took a shaky breath. I wandered for years, too ashamed to fight, but I kept one thing, one document proving everything. Hamza felt his heart race. Why are we here now? Arif leaned heavily on him. Because I don't have much time left, and I want to give you what I no longer can use. Hamza shook his head immediately. No, Baba, I can't take. You will, Arif said firmly, surprising Hamza with his strength, because you are the only soul who helped me without wanting anything. They entered the warehouse. Sunlight streamed through broken windows, casting long beams over dusty machines and forgotten cloth rolls. Arif walked slowly, touching the machines as though greeting old friends. Then he turned to Hamza, his eyes shimmering. Open the paper I gave you. Hands trembling, Hamza unfolded the paper. His heart stopped. It was a signed transfer deed, passing ownership of the entire warehouse and its remaining assets to him. Hamza stepped back. Baba, why me? You don't even know me fully. I know enough, Arif whispered. You have a pure heart. You saved me, when everyone else stepped over me. Tears welled in Hamza's eyes. But this is too much. Arif smiled faintly. Kindness is never too much. Suddenly, he coughed violently, his frail body shaking. Hamza rushed to support him, but Arif collapsed onto a stack of old cloth rolls. Hamza panicked, calling his name again and again. Arif held his hand tightly. Listen, my time is ending. His breathing was shallow. But now, you will rebuild what I lost. No, you're coming with me to the clinic, Hamza insisted, voice breaking. Arif shook his head slowly. No hospital can fix what age has taken. He reached up, cupping Hamza's cheek with trembling fingers. Promise me, you will use this place for good, hire people who need work, treat them like family. Hamza sobbed but nodded. I promise. A peaceful smile touched Arif's lips. Then my life was not wasted. He closed his eyes and the old man who had been visible to the world took his final breath. Hamza cried for a long time, alone in the dusty warehouse with the man who had entered his life by chance but changed it forever. When he finally stood up, he wiped his tears and held the deed tightly. He felt the weight of responsibility but also the warmth of purpose. The next weeks were a whirlwind. Hamza met lawyers, verified documents, fought legal battles with Arif's former partners and, against all odds, won. The ownership was confirmed. The warehouse was his, He used Arif's old contacts to restart the textile business. He hired widows, students, disabled workers, and struggling families, the very people society overlooked, just like they overlooked Arif. The warehouse buzzed back to life, filled with hope, gratitude, and dignity. Hamza's business grew so quickly that newspapers began calling him a man who rebuilt kindness into an empire. One day, as he stood in his office overlooking the factory floor, he whispered, "This is for you, Baba." And somewhere, in the unseen corners of the world, a soul surely smiled. Hamza had saved an old man nobody cared about, and in return, he received something no amount of money could buy, a purpose that transformed his destiny forever.